When it comes to your franchisees, how big is a territory? Is it split up by like zip codes, or how does that whole thing work?
So the way that we've been running it up until now is just basically you have a 10-mile radius around your physical location where you're keeping the RVs,
Okay.
which is another cool thing about the business model is you don't need a brick and mortar because all you do is you just partner with a storage facility where you group all the RVs together. So it's another way that it's very low overhead. And what we found, and I'm realizing we're going to need to get a little more granular on that as far as
Mm-hmm.
delegating territories
Mm-hmm.
as we continue to expand, uh, because we need to factor in populations. It's you don't know what you don't know, right? You learn all
Right.
of a sudden you learn, oh, I probably shouldn't have given somebody a 10-mile territory downtown Austin, Texas, where the population is 2 million. You know, we could have 10 locations there, but it's
Right.
all good. And the cool thing we've learned too about this is, you have renters literally come from all around the world,
Mm-hmm.
and you have RV owners from all around the country that are bringing RVs. So really the only thing that a physical location really is stating is you just wouldn't have another Fireside in that radius, but you
Right.
still service customers. I mean, for instance, we have Dathan in Huntsville, Alabama, and he services the Talladega races and stuff in Tennessee and Georgia, and he's in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting how that all works with it being, that our product is something that's on wheels and it moves around the country.
Yeah, it's such an interesting business. But if I think I heard you right, so if a franchisee, let's say they have 10 RVs, other people's RVs, other people's assets, all 10 of these RVs are all quote unquote parked in the same storage unit lot because it's not being parked at each person's home. Is that right?
Yeah, so they're brought to a central location where they can manage those RVs on behalf of the
Okay.
owner. Yes,
So
sir.
maintenance, everything is kept up by the franchisee, not by the
Yeah.
owner of the RV.
Yeah, so the franchisee is either performing that or delegating it, which is one of the cool ways so we're making typically a 50% management fee to manage the
Mm-hmm.
RV for the owner. And then there's all these other ways to monetize. One of them is a lot of our franchise. Actually, I have 5 or 6 of my franchisees right now headed to a Lippert training in Tampa, which Lippert's, one of the manufacturers of boat and RV parts.
Yeah.
So several of our franchisees have actually become certified RV repair techs.
Mm-hmm.
So not only are they earning the management fee, but they're also getting the $125 to $145 an hour to service their own fleet. And then we have, the agreements with the manufacturers for the parts. We're selling RVs for the owners on consignment, getting a 10 to 15% fee for doing that. So there's so many
Nice.
different ways to monetize, or you could just simply delegate like I did. I delegated, traveled the country when I was building this, and that was where the value was for me.
Wow, fascinating. Okay, before our podcast started, Anthony and I were having a conversation. What is the story behind the Tampa Bay area being like the world headquarters of RVs? Why are all these RV companies on I-4 between Tampa and Orlando?
I'm not sure. I do know that the largest RV show in the country is in Tampa. We just had our Fireside annual retreat, and we do that
Hmm.
at Camp Margaritaville in Auburndale. And then
Okay.
one day we all go to the Tampa RV show together. But but yeah, I had my film crew with me as we're driving there, and he's constantly shooting off like Airstream dealership, Camping World, this that. I don't
Lazy
know how
days.
that
Yeah,
has
they're all
become this hub.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a story behind it. I don't recall it, but there is a story behind why the Tampa Bay area is like the the central hub for RVs.
Yeah, I don't know how that's come to be. I do know there's a big argument in the RV community if the Hershey, Pennsylvania RV show is the biggest one in the country or the Tampa one
Okay.
is.
All right. Well, who is your ideal franchise owner, Gar?
So our idea, I feel like we're still figuring that out. That's one of the things where it's like you don't know what you don't know. Because
Right.
obviously we've had franchises that have failed, and
We
it
all
breaks
have.
your heart, right? And you're you're like trying to figure out, okay, what didn't we do? What could have we done? And all this. And at the end of the day, some of them, it's like, there's nothing you could have done. It's just, they
Sure.
love the vision. You did a good job of painting the picture of the business. And at the end of the day, they realized that they just didn't have, one of the main things I realized when I just was in this interview yesterday, and she's like, what's the main characteristic? And I said, to me, it's grit. Because if you have grit where you can learn the things and you can be okay with the ups and downs and everything, then you're gonna persevere and you're gonna, succeed.
I agree.
But what we've found is a successful candidate for us. And then we have, the stay-at-home mom who just blows it out of the water. It's crazy. But what we found, a common thread is, first of all, in my marketing, I'm very upfront. My marketing is, I feel that I'm called to serve Christian entrepreneurs. Like, that is what God has wired me to do.
Okay.
So we're very upfront with that messaging. Why? Because if I get into a coaching call with you and I tell you to open in the book of Proverbs, and I say, well, hey, it says right here in Proverbs 1:3, I don't want you to say, dude, why are you opening the Bible? Like, what is this all about? So I'm very upfront that's who I feel that I'm called to serve.
Okay.
And then also entrepreneurs that have RV experience. Either they grew up RVing or they're already renting a lot of my franchisees, I'd say probably 40% of them, they found me because they were renting their RV on RV Share. They're making a ton of money, and they joined. I have a couple of Facebook groups where we have about 30,000 members in them. And then they run it, they see my messaging, or they run on into my podcast, and they realize, wait, this could be a business and I could do it with other people's RVs. We've noticed that those people, it just clicks very easy.
Of course. This sounds like this is your pool of people, which is so much different than somebody just looking for a quote unquote franchise opportunity in entrepreneur.com or biz buy sell or something. You really have a targeted audience here that's unique.
Yeah, we really do. We've and it all the way back to location number one, where Kim in the Upper Peninsula is still with us today. I gave him a free trial location. That's how we got connected. It was in a Facebook group for the peer-to-peer RV rental industry. And that's what I did, just to, encourage people on here that you're thinking about franchising and you want to beta test and offer to share with. All I did is I went into these Facebook communities that aligned with what I was doing, and I just gave value. I just taught what I was learning, and I just shared, and I just gave value. And that's really how this, continued to grow.
Wow. Well, you mentioned franchise failures and stuff. We've all had them. I've had my fair share. Every franchisor has. I'm curious though, on the other side, what would you say are the traits? Think about your most successful franchisees of the 55 plus franchise owners you have. What are some of the common threads of some of those best people that you have out there?
So at our retreat that we just did, I went and got John Maxwell certified to be a disc trainer and coach. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be real equipped to serve these franchisees at this retreat and then see what can I learn in them as far as common threads. And what we learned is extroverts, just the eye on the disc, those just super outgoing, motivated, charismatic people that you just want to be around. To me, we found that's one of the biggest common threads is just somebody that walks in the room, they light it up, they're full of energy, they can talk to everybody, they can connect people. Because at the end of the day, no matter what business model you go with, and that's what I tell people about the franchise world is like, I don't care, just pick one, because franchise models are amazing, right? They're like proven systems. Why would you pay $50,000 to get an associate's degree, probably nowadays, when you could pay $50,000 to basically like almost be guaranteed success? Is if you have that core characteristic where you can go out and just do the thing and you're not worried about objections or, not getting the sale or being denied. Because on the other side, that's what we saw with the franchisees that were failing is they do they put together the spreadsheets and they run the numbers, they do all the research, like, this is amazing, I'm in. And then they sign up and the next step is to go talk to owners of RVs. And then they're like, oh, I have to talk to people? to run this business? You never told me I had to talk to people. So that's one of the most, one of the biggest characteristics that we've seen in people is that they're extroverts. And then on top of that is they don't think they have it all figured out. They're coachable, they're teachable. You can tell them, hey, this is what to do. Just trust me, and they'll go out and do it.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.